Skyrush is the absolutely insane intimate hyper located at Hershey Park in Hershey, Pennsylvania. This coaster was the first one I rode during my visit to Hershey Park, and it exceeded my expectations in every way imaginable. So in this video, I'm going to be taking an in-depth look at every aspect of the coaster and giving it a final score at the end. Now let's get into the video. Before we get into the main portion of the video, let's look at some background on the coaster. Skyrush is an intimate wing coaster that opened in the park of May of 2012 for a cost of $25 million. The ride has a max height of 200 feet, a drop height of 186 feet, a max speed of 75 miles per hour, and the ride drops at an 85-degree angle, and you come over 3,600 feet of track. The ride was crammed into a very small plot of land for a hypercoaster, featuring a figure 8 layout instead of the more traditional out and back style, which just adds to the insanity of the coaster. With all that out of the way, let's look at our presentation category. Skyrush is located near the front of Hershey Park in a section of the park called the Hollow, and when I say it absolutely towers over that part of the park, I mean this thing looks massive. The ride has a similar presence to rides such as Ferry 225 or even Top Thrill Drax to some extent. The ride sports a yellow and blue color scheme which really pops into the skyline and looks even better when you take into consideration the location of the coaster. The ride is built over a body of water which runs through that section of the park, and on a nice sunny day, the ride just looks beautiful. The coaster doesn't feature any theming or around the layout or in the queue and station, but for what it does have, I'm giving presentation a 6 out of 10. Now when I say this queue line is absolutely terrible, I am not joking in the slightest. The way they have it set up, the majority of your weight is stuck in cattle pen hell, which has hardly any shading over it. I can't even do my normal thing where I talk you through the sections of the queue because it is nothing but a cattle pen followed by stairs into the station. There are no views of the coaster unless you love watching trains climb a lift hill, there's hardly any shade, and worst of all, the line moves unbelievably slow. I have legitimately ran out of things to say, and it's for this reason I'm doing a first in my review videos. Queue line gets a 0 out of 10. Now I can be positive again, because we are looking at the ride experience of Skyrush. You head to the station and begin up the 200-foot cable lift hill, which is actually the world's fastest lift at over 13 miles per hour. You quickly reach the top of the lift and begin down one of the craziest first drops on any coaster in the world. I don't know what is up with this thing, but it feels normal in the front row, but the moment you sit in the back row, you get one of the strongest ejector airtime moments I have ever experienced. The drop has a random kink about halfway down that absolutely launches you out of your seat, and the only way I can describe it is if you took a normal first drop and put an airtime of a bunny hill from an RMC halfway down it. It genuinely scared the daylights out of me on my first ride, and still even terrified me after over 8 rides. Pulling out of the drop, you get absolutely crushed with positive Gs, 5.1 to be exact, before whipping up into the first of 2 large and sustained camelback hills. Both of the hills pull upwards of -1 Gs, and unlike the ejector on the first drop, they are insanely sustained. Easily some of my favorite moments of airtime on any coaster ever. You whip out of this first airtime hill and enter a low to the ground turn, which is hyper intense. Not just in the positives, but also when it comes to laterals as well. You pull out of this turn and enter the second of the large camelbacks, but this one has a terrifying head chopper with the first hill. This one combined with the super strong ejector airtime makes this my favorite airtime moment on the ride. Once again you drop out of this airtime hill and hit another low banked turn. Unlike the last one, this has the single strongest moment of laterals on the ride, on top of the incredibly strong positive Gs. On my first ride in the back row, this turn completely pinned me to the side of the train, and actually ended up leaning me over the side of my restraint, which was insane. This turn leads you into a super whippy stangle dive that gives you a abrupt pop of airtime when in the back row, and super sustained laterals to everyone in the train. You quickly turn out of the stangle dive into a quick transition, once again giving a strong moment of lateral forces, before you pull up into an insanely whippy S-hill. The way the train just drops out from under you as you are flung into the air while still getting powerful laterals is just wild and a ton of fun. When you're in one of the wing seats, you truly feel like you're going to be thrown into the lake next to you, and it perfectly transitions into the next and final airtime moment. This small little hill once again gives an insane moment of ejector airtime, most similar to the airtime hill on Maverick at Cedar Point. Other than that, I can't really say much about it. Right after this hill, you twist up and coast into the final brake run. This layout is one of my favorites just due to the blitz of forces it provides. The layout is getting a 9 out of 10. Now for the most controversial part of Skyrush, the comfort. I'll touch on the small subject first, and that is how smooth the ride itself is. Personally, I did notice a pretty large vibration during the 2 super intense turns, but they didn't take away from the ride experience in my opinion. The biggest elephant in the room is Terry. The second biggest elephant in the room are the restraints, and well, I'm gonna be blunt, I really liked them. Now sure, they aren't nearly as comfortable as the B&M clamshell restraints, or stuff like that, but they leave you feeling extremely open and exposed during the ride, which really helps exemplify the ride's forces. Only time I thought they were uncomfortable was while waiting on the brake run, and even that wasn't too bad, more so a mild annoyance. I think it's fair to give comfort a 7 out of 10. Skyrush's statistical final score comes out to a 5.5 out of 10. My personal score is going to be an 8.8 out of 10. The biggest thing holding both scores back was the horrific queue line and the lackluster presentation. If it weren't for these 2 things, then I would be confident in giving Skyrush a higher rating. However, what I do know is that what it does well, it does really well. The coaster is unbelievably intense and a massive adrenaline rush from start to finish, featuring some of the most aggressive ejector airtime in the world. Now I want to hear what you think. Tell me your opinion on Skyrush in the comments down below, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe while you're at it. I'm trying to reach 300 subscribers by the end of 2023, so if you could help me out, it would mean the world to me. That's all for this week. I'll see you next week with a new video. Bye for now.